All right, everybody. Hey, we are here today with Jonathan Dodson, who has written a book called Our Good Crisis, which seems very aptly titled these days. Overcoming Moral Chaos with the Beatitudes. And so, Jonathan, hello. Great to see you. Where are you located right now?
I'm in Austin, Texas, in the corner of our bedroom in my makeshift office, and I'm pleased to be with you.
Now, we're recording this in the middle of the Corona lockdown. Now, is Texas really its own country? Are there entirely different rules going on down there for us Ohioans?
Oh, absolutely. And not only is Texas its own country, but Austin is its own state.
It's true. That's how we do things out here.
Dang. Okay.
There's actually a ongoing feud between our mayor and the governor of Texas, between Adler and Abbott. They constantly pass different policies regarding social issues. So, perfect. And the coronavirus is no exception.
Perfect. So have you been sheltering in place?
I have been sheltering in place indeed. Yeah. Okay. I try to get out for a walk every morning, but we've been locked down for a couple months. You know, we've got 3 kids, and so we escaped for a week out into the country and got an Airbnb. There was a pool, and the kids were able to just kind of let loose, and I think that gave everybody some sanity.
Oh, that's
we're in a small town home that kind of goes vertical, so it was good to get out in the country and have some space. And but yeah, we've been locked down like everybody else.
Yeah. What's your new quarantine hobby? Do you have one?
Actually, I did take up running again.
Nice.
I stopped about 15 years ago, and now every other day I run about 2 miles. And one neat thing is that I'm running with my teenage daughter, which has been a real joy just to kind of connect with her, bond with her. Got her some new running shoes, and
nice.
It's been fun just to connect. Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Jonathan, my new quarantine hobby is not running, and so that has been.
I don't know if we can call that new.
That.
I'm sure.
So I just want to say on behalf of us, I'm proud of you. So where are you at? What are you doing? You pastor a church, correct? Tell us about that.
We moved here 15 years ago to plant City Life Church. It's downtown Austin, and we kind of moved here with a kind of question: where is the city broken, and what would it look like for the gospel to address the brokenness of the city spiritually, socially, and culturally? So City Life exists to renew cities socially, spiritually, and culturally with the gospel of Jesus. And it's a mixed bag like any ministry. You know, there's ups and downs, peaks and valleys, but it's a profound privilege to be here. We love this city. We love the particular challenges to ministry that this city brings as a kind of countercultural, progressive, creative city. We love the beauty of Austin. As I look out my window and look at live oaks and juniper ash trees.
That's fine. Stop.
You know,
we don't care. I'm in Ohio. Is that where Chip and Joanna Gaines live? Is Austin, or is that a different city? Because that's all.
No, they live in Waco.
They live in Waco. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the only reason I'm asking is this is all I know about Texas, is that it is the home of Chip and Joanna Gaines. And the Cowboys. I know those things.
That's disappointing.
That's disappointing.
All right, Jonathan, let's talk about this book. All right, what the book is called Our Good Crisis, Overcoming Moral Chaos with the Beatitudes. So let's talk Beatitudes for a second. What are the Beatitudes? Where do we find them? How does Jesus use them? Sort of if somebody was uninitiated to the Bible, a lot of us will know what they're in reference to, but what are Beatitudes?
Yeah. Well, beatitude comes from a Latin word, beatitudo, which means blessing. And they're kind of these punchy moral statements that prefaced Jesus' most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. Mm-hmm. That sermon appears in the Gospel of Matthew. It also appears in the Gospel of Luke as the Sermon on the Plain. he probably gave it more than twice, and those are two different accounts. In the Gospel of Matthew, we have a more extended sermon, and the Beatitudes are extended also. So they are really Jesus' kind of coherent, fruitful, moral vision for humanity. And they begin with each one with the word blessing or blessed. That can mean flourishing, that can mean peaceful, content, joyful. All of those words kind of fit into that word, which makes it a wonderful word, and it makes it a word that resonates with every human. How do I live a peaceful, joyful, content life of flourishing? And of course, Jesus isn't naive. There is a promise of blessing even in the midst of mourning and persecution in these Beatitudes. So it's a very rich, moral, spiritual vision for the flourishing of humanity before Jesus gets into his full-blown Sermon on the Mount.
Great answer. Is Jesus commending things like mourning and persecution and poverty of spirit, or is he pronouncing blessing over groups that wouldn't have been traditionally considered to be blessed?
Yeah, it does raise interesting questions. So you have different people interpreting the Beatitudes differently, especially over church history. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Is that a command to be poor in spirit? Is it, if you find yourself poor in spirit, hey, guess what? The kingdom of heaven is coming. There's kind of I think an intentional tension in each Beatitude, which you wouldn't be surprised with Jesus as kind of a master teacher. So you have a moral imperative kind of built into that, to be poor in spirit. And at the same time, you have a heavenly promise. So poor in spirit, we could just take that one if you want.
Yeah.
The poor in spirit has been interpreted two different ways. It's been interpreted literally, because in the Gospel of Luke, it's blessed are the poor, no in spirit phrase. And so people have argued for a particular attention to the poor, that this is restricted to the economically impoverished. And so this beatitude is for them. Of course, in Matthew, Jesus adds the in spirit phrase. So it has to do with more than kind of circumstantial poverty. It has to do with spiritual poverty. And so I think what he's trying to do is say, if you are to be a person who is blessed and to be a part of the kingdom of heaven, then you need to be a person who is in touch with the circumstantially poor, but also to be someone who is spiritually poor. A simple way would be you need to be a generous and humble person. A generous and humble people experience blessing, contentment, joy that transcends their circumstances. And I found that to be true in people that have influenced my life. I think of Tom and Julie Steller, 1604 Elliott, big yellow 3-story house in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And they lived on a block full of Somalians. We moved in on the first floor. They lived on the second and third floor. There were 2 single guys in the basement. I mean, they pushed as many people as they could into that house. And Tom and Julie loved their neighborhood. If there was a conflict in the neighborhood, people came to their house. If people needed to borrow a car, people looked to them, and they would just without a moment's notice, they were ready to give what they had. I know that they gave way beyond their means. They chose to live simply and to be generous to those around them in prayer, in finances, in time, and also both of them are quite successful, I guess you could say, in terms of ministry. Tom founded a theological school. Julie founded a home goods company where she hired down and out women to make home goods, to knit things, and then kind of give them work and meaning. And of course, they would never tell you this. They would never say, hey, I'm the founder of this or I'm the founder of that. They're just humble, generous people.
Right.
And so that's a little picture of the poor in spirit, Right. And they experience the kingdom of heaven, and they bring the kingdom of heaven in being poor in spirit.
And so you juxtapose these visions of Jesus against almost call it, what would be called American Beatitudes. Where do Americans think we find blessing? And so, what do you contrast poor in spirit with? What do you see Americans, if Americans were writing a creed on, blessing, what it means to be blessed apart from the kingdom, where would you locate the opposite of poverty of spirit?
Yeah, well, I with that particular one, I'd say we wouldn't say blessed are the proud, because we're too alert to the moral dangers of pride, But blessed is the individual. Blessed is the language I use in here is the big me. So what does it mean to be a poor in spirit in the age of the big me? Because in the age of the big me, this is a phrase I borrowed from David Brooks in his book on character, which is fantastic. In the age of the big me, you have kind of two versions of that. You have a activist me. Hey, look at the causes I'm part of. Look at the justice I'm pursuing. Look at the things that I'm doing for the world. And then you have the kind of the inner me. I might not be into causes, but I'm look how spiritual I am. Look at the spiritual disciplines that I follow, or it may even be a therapeutic me. I'm so in touch with my hurts, my pains. This kind of retreat into the self. But both of them are big. One is really kind of a more shriveled me, but it's still big, and then one is a big me, but it's a more visible kind of, hey, look at me. And both are operating not on humility, but on pride. The activist me wants kind of applause for the things that they accomplish. And the shriveled therapeutic me wants to be coddled or understood or approved of. But in both instances, the self is what is most important, not something greater than the self. And so that's hard. It's hard to be humble when that's the kind of culture that you swim in. And when people around you are kind of encouraging that big me. And so it's very difficult to cultivate kind of poverty of spirit. In fact, it's impossible unless you have something greater than yourself to adore. And that's the wonder and the beauty of God himself in this particular beatitude, is that poverty of spirit doesn't come from by white knuckling and saying, I'm going to stop thinking about myself. But it comes by looking at something that's truly great, way greater than ourselves. And I think of my trips to the Atlantic Ocean whale watching as I see a massive whale crest the Atlantic, and water sprays everywhere. And I'm just stunned at how small I am. And at the same time, looking out of that vast ocean, I'm thrilled at the same time, or you might have a similar experience looking at the Rocky Mountains. You step out, you see the snow-capped peaks, you see the beauty and the grandeur of these rugged 16,000 foot mountains. You're humbled. Your breath's taken away, but at the same time, you're thrilled. Well, that's what happens when we get close to something greater than us and more gracious than us in the person of God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So, so that's a bit of the secular kind of beatitude. It's a big me. And Jesus is seeking a little me in the shadow of his greatness and grace.
Yeah, I think that's really, really wise. And I like how you juxtapose that. I have a question for you. And I kept thinking of this when I was reading that chapter in your book. I don't always know where to put the self-help, hustle, motivational culture of things. And we see that, we see a lot of Christian authors now writing books in that realm. And I especially see a lot of women Christian authors doing it. I have mixed emotions on it, right? Because I think that some parts of it can be healing in terms of being confident, right? Especially women that have constantly been told opposite. So some of it I can see very healing. I can also see it good that when we can, so to speak, put our oxygen masks on ourselves, then we can help others. So I see parts of it that are very fruitful and good. But then something sometimes rubs me the wrong way. and I can't always quite pinpoint it. Some of it seems a little prosperity gospel at times, but I just didn't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like when we're talking about the big me and poor in spirit, because it would be super easy to say, like I thought of that when you said about the therapeutic me. It would be very easy to make that an idol. I don't know. What have you sort of come across even in your church or while you were writing this, and how culture affects that?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. I think there are a lot of very helpful insights from people like Brene Brown, addressing kind of shame, being brave, psychologists, sociologists, some popular writers grabbing these ideas. There's all truth is God's truth, so if it's true, let's celebrate it. The question becomes, is that particular truth in its proper place? So I think when you take a psychological insight that validates some aspect of who you are or what your experience has been, that's great. But it in validating that experience or that emotion, the danger is that becomes your defining reality, that you seek to validate yourself based on a hurt or experience or pain, and that becomes you either settle into the victim identity or you overextend and try to become a victor or a conqueror of that. And that particular truth that has been so helpful dislodges our identity in Christ. That's the danger. The benefit, obviously, is to really address those things and help us step out into the light, to be brave, to be honest, to be transparent. But when we kind of get stuck there in that victim mode, or when we overreach and try to kind of define ourselves by escaping that particular experience or pain, it is easy to overreach beyond Christ or underreach and not invite Christ in it. So you become a kind of self-redeemer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think there's great benefit, but that truth needs to find its proper place under the way, the truth, and the life, Jesus himself.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
One of the things you do in a different chapter, speaking of pride, is you talk about 3 different kinds of pride. Even though we're kind of, as you say, aware of the dangers and pitfalls of pride, it's still pretty insidious. And that was a part of the book I was interested in. Just would you go into those 3 forms? I know it's dealing with a different beatitude, but it's still very much part of the. I think it's an extension of the big me.
Yeah,
way absolutely. Of living life.
Yeah. Well, the poor in spirit is kind of a vertically conceived humility. It's produced by encountering a great and gracious God. And then blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. That meekness, I think, is more of a kind of horizontally or socially experienced humility. And we all know those kinds of people. When you get around a humble person, you enjoy it because they ask you a lot of questions. They show interest in your life, and they're refreshing to be around. The challenge, as you point out, is to actually be that kind of person.
Right.
I was just meeting with some guys online this morning, and we were confessing our own pride and encouraging one another to draw near to God and to pursue humility. So this meekness in that chapter, I talk about 3 obstacles. There's strong pride, which is look at me, applause. I'm so good at this thing or this attribute that I have. There's weak pride. It's not applause, it's approval. Poor me, I'm insignificant. I haven't achieved what I want to achieve. And yet it still is self-focused. And then there's the middle pride, which is it is somewhere in between. It's kind of there are catchphrases in our society for middle pride, like you do you, or that's my truth, or those kinds of things that don't appear to be proud, but are still radically self-centered. And so there are times in which that phrase is used positively. For instance, in the Me Too movement, when people have actually been assaulted and they own their truth. That is very important to do, and to be able to come out into the light with it. But that's because what they're talking about is actually true. There's another version of the middle pride that says, I don't really care about reality and how God defines it, which is how I flourish. I'm going to own my own truth. I'm going to create my own morality. I'm going to form my own sexuality. And that's that middle pride of saying, I don't care what anybody else thinks. What matters most is what I feel. And so that's that middle. It's in between the two. And what happens with the middle pride is feelings dictate what's true instead of truth dictating our feelings. So those are the three types that you were kind of referencing there in that chapter. And those, of course, are helpful for us to kind of locate where we are so that we can bring that in confession to God and find a greater source of meaning and worth in his presence.
Yeah. And the trick, as you say, is that there are parts of each of those three that are good and God honoring. To say, I mean, the opposite of pride isn't false humility, right? It's not pretending I'm not something when I actually am something, right? Middle pride's tricky because, yes, on the one hand, it can be another expression of, hey, just follow your dreams. And it doesn't matter. It's why all those horrible singers sign up for American Idol every year. Right? I mean, that's middle pride. Am I right, Stafford?
Amen.
Right?
I'm going to sign up next year.
And they're shocked. They're shocked when they're horrific. They're shocked that they're not loved. Right? That's a picture of middle pride, correct?
Yeah.
I've created an alternative reality.
Yes.
And when that gets punctured, but they're also, with Bonnie, I can see parts of it that are still good and helpful. So it's so tough to sift and sort all of that.
Yeah.
Moving on to another, and again, some of these, so what you do, is you set up over, the biblical, the Jesus-oriented vision against the kind of American vision of blessing. And one of the things that's super controversial is peacemaking in an age of outrage. Right? I mean, holy moly. So first of all, I'm outraged at that title, to make a dumb joke. But let's talk about peacemaking and outrage. So we've just seen a video of an African American man jogging in a white neighborhood, and without knowing all the facts, the video is just unbelievably horrific, and people are rightly outraged. So what's good outrage? What's bad outrage? And where does peacemaking come in from a Christian point of view?
Yeah. Well, it is awful what we've seen, and there are times in which outrage is the most immediate response, the most authentic response. There is outrage in the Psalms. My God, why have you forsaken me? From the Son of God himself. So outrage generally has kind of a negative connotation, but there are times in which it is positive and appropriate. I don't think you want to stay there, but there are times when it is appropriate. If you stay there, you'll become embittered and angry and despairing. So while being true to your experience and your emotions, and God doesn't judge us for our emotions, he has experienced the full gamut of human emotion as Jesus walked the earth. We also don't want to be defined completely by our emotions. So one of the stories I tell in this chapter is the story of Christine Sacco. She was on her way to Africa. She was a communications VP for a company, Before she got onto a plane to Africa, she tweeted out, headed to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got on the plane. Yeah, she got on the plane, and then she didn't have any access to the internet. Well, in the meantime, social media erupted, and there was a hashtag created, "Has Justine landed yet?" And so people were, calling for her to be fired and, justly excoriating her racist comments. It turns out she had a sordid history on social media. Anyway, she lands to being fired from her position. Mm-hmm. And that's another indication of outrage accomplishing good, of being appropriate. However, often outrage does more damage than good. And what also was said was, we hope Christine gets raped. We hope that she gets murdered. I mean, there was just a whole slew of things that were disproportionate to what she had said, and in fact, evil. So outrage alone is not a way into peace, to flourishing. And yet at times it is an appropriate response to the things that we experience. So as I think about Jesus' command, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. How is it that we can genuinely and authentically engage things, injustices that provoke outrage, and at the same time move towards peace? It depends on what you define peace as. If it's just kind of laying down your arms, that's kind of a cheap peace.
Yeah.
The peace that Jesus has in mind is a full-bodied peace. It's a peace not just of, hey, let's stop fighting, but let's experience reconciliation, not just reconciliation, but healing and mending, mending of those deep wounds and mending of those broken relationships and mending of those injustices. And one day God will mend it all. Mm-hmm. And we will be in a new creation where righteousness and justice dwell. That's where it lives. The zip code of justice will be the new creation. Until that day, Christians have a unique ability and calling to bring the future into the present, to bring the shalom of God into our own zip codes. And that peace is so full-orbed that it enables us to do this. Now, as I thought about people who do this in relationships with social issues, justice issues, I had a hard time finding people who I thought, man, that's a great peacemaker. I think a lot of us are pushed to the extremes, outrage or fragility, strong pride, weak pride. And it's hard to find people who are so centered in what Jesus says, being a son or a daughter of God, that they can walk into a conflict, walk into disagreement, and broker true reconciliation and peace. And yet that's the wonderful thing, is if we really lean into, I am adopted and loved fully, completely, without reservation, without a smug little look on his face, by our Heavenly Father. If we are loved like that, so radically, you belong here, he says. I'm not just kind of making room for you. You belong with me. If we settle into that, then when we walk into conflict, we don't have to be right. We don't have to conquer. We don't have to win over. We can walk in with greater humility and still pursue reconciliation. We also don't have to walk in and go, what if I lose this relationship? What if I don't have this friendship anymore? And be fearful. We have profound love and friendship with Jesus. So there is a power in being sons and daughters of God, and a love that enables us to walk into conflict and injustice and to pursue this kind of full-orbed peace, regardless of what might happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I like what you said there too about how sometimes outrage is just appropriate. But I'm wondering if we, the tension of holding outrage and peace together. One thing my therapist always tells me is, she's like, remember that anger is always a secondary emotion, that your outrage or your anger rises up because there's actually something else there. There's this feeling of injustice or cross boundary, or, there's sort of these other pieces. And so if we can move, like you said, move beyond the outrage, sort of define what it is, that step in and of itself might push us towards peacemaking. If we're just acting out of anger and we're just kind of flying off the handle, it usually doesn't accomplish much. But if we're able to sort of take a step back and look at why something was unfair, why something was unjust, then we have actual action items. We were discussing this last night with this case, and our first emotion about it is outrage. And then you actually might know her because I think she lived in Austin for a while. Latasha Morrison.
I know the name.
Yeah, she has a ministry called Be the Bridge. And
yeah.
And it's all about racial reconciliation. And she posted this great video, and she was so, you could tell she was emotional, but she was calm and she was very wise. And it was this sense of, I have moved past my outrage, and here are tangible things that we can do. And that was such a picture of peacemaking. So I loved that you spelled that out in such a way of like, hey, sometimes outrage is necessary, and it can even drive us towards peace. So I like that you did that.
Yeah. And it's so great that your friend was able to model that for us. We need more models of that.
Yeah. So you talk about a good crisis, our good crisis. I mean, there's so much that we would consider a crisis these days. So it's timely, and man, we're very, very grateful you would take some time out to hang with us. And where can people find you online?
My personal blog is jonathandodson.org. The books are at all the places where you can buy books. And I'm on Twitter, Jonathan Dodson _Dodson. So if any of that's helpful, there you go.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Yep. Appreciate your time today, Jonathan.
Sincerely, thank you.
Yep.
All right.
Stay safe.
Okay. You too. See you guys. Thanks for your time.
Absolutely, buddy. Bye. All right, everybody. That was Jonathan Dodson. And we would just want to take a few minutes to reflect on some of his work and what we heard in the interview. Tim and Bonnie, what do you guys, what did you hear? What were you thinking? What was your reaction?
I had a question, but I just didn't ask it. So I'm going to ask it here.
Well, boo.
And let you guys
on you
talk about it and react to it. So for me, the section that stood out to me the most in his book is the section on mourning. And in it, I think that obviously right now, there's quite a bit of, I'm just like, I don't think that we know how to mourn and lament. And that's been kind of an ongoing theme. I don't know how to do those two things. Being someone who struggles with depression and anxiety and that kind of stuff, you're always trying to push those big negative emotions away. And you're trying not to deal with it. I know good therapy helps you to do that, but I just mean in general, you're just kind of like, I feel terrible. I don't want to feel that way anymore. How do I not?
Yeah. You look for relief, not healing.
Yeah. And he writes in here something, let's see, where is it? When disappointment strikes, many of us try to minimize our sorrow. It's not that bad. It's really not that big a deal. I'm just waiting on Mr. Right. There's a better job waiting for you. Just think it could have been worse. And I do think that is how we tend to deal with a lot of stuff. And even now, it's like, we had dinner with friends last night, social distanced outside, and they're just like, everyone was asking questions about how are you dealing with this, and do you think that you're paying attention to everything in a really good way, that when you reflect back on this, that you will have felt everything or thought through everything? And I'm just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to mourn this. I don't know how to lament. I don't know how to pray, which we've talked about a lot, right? Prayer has been an interesting reevaluation and struggle. Like, I don't know what to bring to God other than just why and how and what do we do. And so I'm curious what you guys think about this idea of mourning and what it looks like, what it means, how important it is to do it correctly, and in even kind of what correct is in this season? That's my question. It's kind of long, sorry.
No.
Yuri, do you have thoughts?
Where's the crickets at?
Yeah, exactly. I can go or I can wait. I didn't want to bulldoze.
I had the same reaction, Bonnie. I was like, I can go or I can wait.
Sure.
Why don't you go? Why don't you go?
Okay. Yeah, I think what often happens is and we've talked about this before, but that grieving, we need more permission to grieve. I think we often think that grieving is only if we lose a loved one or like a relationship ends. But there's lots of little things that we can grieve in a day. And psychologically speaking, even those little things we might go through, although they might be small and quick, the 12 stages of grief, right? Like depending on what it is you're grieving.
There are 12?
I thought so. Is there less?
Oh, no, I thought there were 6, but
maybe I'm saying
sure.
that wrong. I might
No.
that.
I thought you knew something that I was going to learn from, so I was like,
No.
oh, they're 12. What are the new ones?
I don't think so. I think I'm getting this confused with AA. Oh no, wait. Some say 5, some say 7, and some say 12.
Yeah, I just looked it up too, and
there
5,
it is.
7.
Perfect. All right, I'm sorry to get you off your train of thought.
No, you're good.
You're
good. No, so these stages of grief, however many you are feeling in that moment. But if one thing I've learned, it's like it's important to allow that, no matter how insignificant it feels. I think that you have to, because what loss could do is like bury itself somewhere, and then it comes out in like a weird place later.
Oh, it comes out, baby.
A weird conversation, action. Sometimes even, in that book, Body Keeps a Score. Like it shows up elsewhere. So, I don't know. I don't think anybody has the right to say you're not allowed to grieve X, Y, and Z. I think if it feels like a loss to you, you should spend some time figuring out why and what it matters to your life. Yeah,
for sure. And the Bible obviously gives massive amounts of examples. The thing that's interesting, is that the grief here is mentioned next to blessing. Mm-hmm. And the part of what Jonathan's trying to do is to say, listen, there is an American ideal of blessing. There is a kingdom ideal of blessing. Notice how one of them includes mourning and one of them doesn't, right? So in Christian circles, we have these incredible resources to teach us to mourn, lament. And as you say, Bonnie, those resources are hardly ever tapped, right, for big or small things. But in a covenantal context, lament or mourning is one of the most faithful things we can do as human beings to the things that we encounter in this life. Like lament presupposes God's goodness and evil's evilness, and it cries out. I mean, so I see outrage, I see lament, I see activism as all echoes of image bearing, right? I mean, there's and so to me, I don't know if this is making any sense, but to me, there's a difference between mourning and lamenting. Lamenting includes mourning, but it's bigger than that, right? Because you can grieve. Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. But lament is naming that grief in the midst of a covenantal context that assumes the goodness of God, His power, and His wisdom, and saying, hey, this is out of place. Why aren't you doing something about this? Yeah. And that's the part of grieving I didn't know how to do, was the specific naming, sitting in, resting in front of God, rather than just whatever coping mechanisms I grew up with.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so Tim, I don't have any answers for your question. I mean, your question's beautiful and absolutely appropriate, But any Christian theology that does not tap into the resources of mourning, lamenting, and grieving that are at the core of the biblical writing, right? I mean, this isn't secondary. This isn't like your therapist is right. Anger is a secondary emotion, but this stuff, man, this is at the core of what it means to be a follower of God. I just think any theology that doesn't make room for that isn't remotely biblically faithful.
Yeah.
So whether it's self-help, whether it's prosperity, whether it's just the pop psychology of, it's all going to get better someday, guys. We're all going to be good.
Right.
Man, that's just out of place. Absolutely. Yeah. I lament that.
Yeah.
It seems lamenting seems very, very counter-American.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think we're in a unique time period. I mean, obviously this virus is affecting the whole world, but just as an American, it's just day after day of things being highlighted that are these just atrocities. And, my therapist, Zach De La Roca, says anger is a gift.
That is the lead singer of Rage Against the Machine, just to be clear for our listeners.
We all get therapy in different ways. Some of us have to go for a drive and listen to really loud music. Yes. But I think it's an interesting study, and I know I should have looked this up before this, because I know that there's a podcast at least maybe 100 episodes ago or so, or more, where you guys did a good unpacking of lamenting. But man, I think it would be a powerful, I think it is not powerful, but a super prudent, like, it just seems like that's the thing that we could really be learning right now, and how to apply that to just everything that's happening day after day after day.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. No, that's good. I mean, that could be a whole deal, because I've really learned a lot from other people who are good at this, and it's very transformative.
Yeah.
And so, I know, Bonnie, same for you.
Yeah.
There's a ton of healing on the other side of lament and mourning, but we define the term so badly that the process is almost, submarined before you even start it.
Yeah.
Because I always thought that the goal of grief was to get rid of it, and
I know.
And the goal of grief is to welcome it and to find comfort in the midst of it, and to integrate it with the rest. And I just had no idea, right? I'm a Enneagram 7. My job is to avoid negative emotions, and grief counts. But so I think that's a phenomenal topic and a great question. Bonnie, what did you think of, or were anything raised for you as you heard Dodson as well? Any big questions or thoughts?
I really liked his ability and approach about the juxtaposition of things. Mm-hmm. I think that's helpful in sort of understanding and decoding the Beatitudes. And it's also, I think, I found his book good, and I found it refreshing, which I think is hard to do, because the Beatitudes, people are always discussing them. So like when he was talking about the outrage, but then also the persecution in an age of comfort. I just thought that was interesting to think about that, especially in light of this, of how many people, in light of the quarantine, I see like these crazy opposite ends, like the pendulum just swinging. I'm just like watching it unfold on my Facebook, and some people are like, shelter in place, wear your masks, do your sanitizer, do this, and they're super passionate. And then the other side, I hardly ever see anybody in the middle of like, you can't take my rights away. And then the first group's like, if you think that's persecution, then you don't know your privilege is showing. And I'm like just watching this thing unfold, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And so it's just an interesting question to raise about persecution and comfort, and that the things we do find comfortable. I mean, if you think about it, for most of us, being in our homes is probably comfortable, if we're lucky. But it's like comforts of our own liberty that people don't like being taken
Curtailed.
away.
That's right.
So that just struck me as like fascinating to watch it like unfold in real time, you know?
I think that brings up a really good point. His biggest target here that kind of is woven through all the chapters is, he calls it individual expressionism, right? It's the idea, and it's even from our conversation, it's what sits behind the three forms of pride, or the big me, or the therapeutic me, or the activist me, is the idea that I get to do what I want, have what I want what I want, and my life gets built on that and about that and for that.
Yeah.
You know, which is obviously counter to Jesus's whole, you know, take up your cross, you deny yourself and follow me sort of train of thought.
Yeah.
So that seems like that's the big villain behind, you know, a lot of the disjunctions in the Beatitudes. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I totally agree with that. And I think he did. And he said that today in his interview too, about like our best way past that is to realize there's somebody bigger and somebody more and somebody. Yeah. So I thought that was a really nice underlining thread and weave that he did through the whole book. So I appreciated that for sure.
But he did it at the cost of oversimplifying loads of things.
Yeah.
It felt like that was one reaction. I was just like, yeah, I get that. And obviously this isn't a book that's meant to address the deep, you know, realities and contours of the human soul and its ability to justify and rationalize, but also be traumatized. And, you know, so I don't know. There were a couple of points where I was just like, the general point maybe, but I don't think it's that simple.
But I would be comfortable giving it to somebody who, like you said at the beginning of the interview, this was their first introduction to the thing. Right? Of like, hey, this is our starting point of conversation. And we always say that with our guests and with books and things like that. Like, all of these things should be an opening up. They should start something, even if we shouldn't probably leave somewhere and be like, well, that was said everything I needed to know about the topic.
Right.
So, I think, like, I had somebody on Instagram write me this week and say, I have known nothing about Christianity. Where would you point me? I ended up pointing her to the Bible Project, because they have some stuff that's super deep, and then they have some stuff that is oversimplified. That's
a great answer.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I think it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Yeah. For sure. Tim, what other thoughts or reactions did you have?
No, that was the big one that I like the distinction for poor in spirit, because I think that is a confusing thing to read when, at least for me, when I would think about that with like blessed is the poor, it's this idea of those who don't have anything, right, and they're struggling. So this idea of poor in spirit seems different. This idea of being, just the way he kind of framed it and simplified it down, of this idea of humility and being able to approach things with humility and humbleness and stuff, I think I appreciated. I was having a hard time not thinking of that Foo Fighters music video, though. Every time someone would say Big Me, all I could think of was Mentos.
Of course.
Tim on fire.
I wish that we had that it was, that we had the rights to be able to play little snippets of music every now and then, because it would, I think
it would be like the Tim internal soundtrack. That would be so
basically.
Good.
That
Sean
should be
always just like every word that someone says, my brain triggers. It's like a jukebox. It's always going. It's like a Shazam jukebox. So someone says something and immediately I have a song to sing. She's just like, you don't even know that you're walking around the house singing songs in reaction to everything, and I don't. And now Mazzy's starting to do it.
Oh my goodness, there it is.
I love it.
All right, gang. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so.
All right. Love it.
Sounds good.
Tim, I think we'd all vote for Tim's internal playlist as a Spotify playlist.
Yes, do it. Based on when
So
when you're editing, write down your things that come up.
Yes. So when I'm angry, here's my playlist. Here's Tim's anger playlist.
You know, we should all do one. I've got some really good angry girl 90s music.
Whoa, Liz Phair? Any Liz Phair?
No.
Oh.
Like
Alanis
it's like
Morissette?
yes. And like some 90s pop, and I also love a
That's too
good
poppy.
Nelly hip hop.
Oh boy.
But it's old stuff.
Okay.
Nelly. Oh, who was I thinking of? I'm like a bird. I want to fly away. Is that person's name Nelly?
No, that's
Oh, yeah, it was Nelly Furtado.
Oh, you're right. I was thinking it's Natalie.
It is a Nelly.
But it's a different Nelly. I'm talking about Band-Aid Nelly.
Yeah.
It's
I
slightly
definitely
different
had
genre.
Rage Against the Machine in my head, and then, on a more sour note, this last couple of days I've just had like the Smashing Pumpkins. I just had like, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
Nice.
Has felt fairly prudent over, or fairly relevant over the last, I don't know, while.
I know. Sometimes if I'm super emo, I'll go Cranberries.
Cranberries are great.
I know. They are good.
Oh, God bless us, everyone. All right, well, friends, there you have it. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, we hope that you stay safe and stay well, and we'll talk to you next time.